For decades, FIFA has enjoyed something most organizations can only dream of: unlimited global attention, billions of viewers, the biggest football tournament on the planet, and perhaps most importantly, the support of some of the world's most powerful brands. Coca-Cola, Adidas, Visa, companies willing to invest hundreds of millions of dollars to be associated with the World Cup. But what happens when those same companies begin asking difficult questions? What happens when the organizations funding football's biggest spectacle become uncomfortable with the direction it's heading? Because according to growing reports, concerns, and industry discussions, something unusual appears to be happening behind the scenes. The relationship between FIFA and some of its biggest commercial partners may not be as comfortable as it once was. And if that relationship continues to deteriorate, the consequences could be enormous. Not just for FIFA, not just for the World Cup, but for the entire future of international football. The warning signs have been there for a while. At first, they were easy to ignore. A few concerns here, a few uncomfortable headlines there, questions about tournament expansion, questions about scheduling, questions about player welfare, questions about governance, questions about the increasing commercialization of football. Individually, none of these issues seem large enough to threaten FIFA's business empire. But together, they started creating a picture that some sponsors could no longer ignore. Because major global brands care about one thing above almost everything else: reputation. Companies spend decades building trust with customers. They spend billions creating positive public images. The last thing they want is to become associated with controversy. And that's where FIFA's challenge begins. The World Cup remains one of the most valuable sporting properties on Earth. It attracts audiences that most companies can only dream about reaching. But with that visibility comes scrutiny. Every decision FIFA makes is examined. Every controversy becomes international news. Every criticism spreads across social media within minutes. And sponsors know that when FIFA faces backlash, they can sometimes get caught in the crossfire. Think about it from a sponsor's perspective. Imagine spending millions to place your logo alongside the biggest sporting event in the world. Everything seems perfect until controversy emerges. Suddenly journalists are asking questions. Fans are criticizing decisions. Social media becomes a battlefield. And your brand is sitting directly next to the organization receiving all the attention. That's not the kind of exposure companies pay for. In recent years, football itself has changed dramatically. The sport is bigger than ever before. More money, more viewers, more tournaments, more commercial opportunities. But with that growth has come increased pressure. Fans are more vocal than ever. Players are more influential than ever. Media coverage is more aggressive than ever. Every decision now faces immediate public reaction. For FIFA, managing that environment has become increasingly difficult. The organization wants to expand. It wants bigger tournaments, bigger audiences, bigger revenues, bigger global influence. But not everyone agrees that bigger automatically means better. Some critics argue that football is reaching a point where commercial interests are beginning to outweigh sporting considerations. Whether that's true or not, the perception itself creates challenges. And perceptions matter enormously to sponsors. The upcoming World Cup represents a perfect example. On one hand, it promises to be the biggest tournament in history. More teams, more matches, more fans, more opportunities for brands to reach consumers. From a business perspective, that sounds like a dream. But on the other hand, expansion also creates new concerns. Longer schedules, greater logistical complexity, increased demands on players, increased pressure on infrastructure. Suddenly what looks like an opportunity can also look like a risk. That's why some industry experts believe sponsors are becoming more cautious than ever before. Not necessarily because they want to abandon FIFA. Not necessarily because they oppose the World Cup. But because they want reassurance. They want stability. They want confidence that the product they're investing in remains protected. And perhaps most importantly, they want to know that future controversies won't damage their own reputations. FIFA has faced difficult moments before. In fact, controversy has often followed the organization throughout its history. Yet somehow the World Cup always survived. Sponsors stayed. Fans returned. Revenues increased. The machine kept moving forward. That's why some people dismiss current concerns as overblown. They argue that the World Cup is simply too valuable to fail, too popular to collapse, too powerful to lose major commercial support. And perhaps they're right. But history teaches us something important. Powerful institutions rarely face serious problems overnight. The warning signs usually appear long before the crisis arrives. Small concerns become larger concerns. Minor disagreements become major disputes. Trust slowly erodes. Relationships become strained. And eventually a situation emerges that nobody expected just a few years earlier. Could FIFA be approaching such a moment? Nobody knows for certain. But the questions are becoming harder to ignore. Consider the broader sports landscape. Brands today have more choices than ever. They can invest in football, basketball, Formula One, esports, tennis, cricket, streaming platforms, digital content creators. The competition for sponsorship dollars is more intense than ever before. That means organizations can no longer assume sponsors will stay forever simply because they always have. Every investment must be justified. Every partnership must provide value. Every risk must be carefully evaluated. And that's where FIFA faces one of its greatest challenges: maintaining the trust of companies that increasingly demand transparency, accountability, and long-term stability. Because modern sponsors don't just buy advertising space. They buy relationships. They buy alignment with values. They buy association with positive experiences. If any of those elements become threatened, difficult conversations begin. The fascinating thing is that most of these conversations happen far away from cameras. Fans don't see them. Journalists rarely hear them. Negotiations take place behind closed doors. Executives discuss concerns privately. Questions are asked quietly. Strategies are reviewed carefully. By the time the public becomes aware of a problem, that problem often existed for months or even years. That's why observers are paying close attention to every signal coming from FIFA's commercial partners. Every statement, every contract negotiation, every public comment. Because even small changes can reveal larger trends. And right now, some people believe those trends deserve attention. Of course, it's important not to exaggerate the situation. FIFA still possesses enormous commercial power. The World Cup remains one of the most attractive sponsorship opportunities in global sports. Millions of fans continue to watch. Companies continue to invest. The tournament itself remains incredibly valuable. But value alone doesn't eliminate concern. In fact, sometimes the most valuable assets require the most careful management. That's the balancing act FIFA must navigate. Continue growing the game while protecting its reputation. Expand commercial opportunities while maintaining credibility. Increase revenues while keeping fans engaged. It's a challenge that becomes more complicated every year. The stakes couldn't be higher. Sponsorship revenue plays a massive role in funding tournaments, development programs, marketing initiatives, and countless other operations connected to global football. If sponsor confidence weakens significantly, the financial consequences could ripple throughout the sport. That's why even the possibility of tension between FIFA and major brands attracts so much attention. Because this isn't just about logos on advertising boards. It's about the economic foundation supporting the world's most popular sport. The next few years may prove especially important. The upcoming World Cup will attract unprecedented attention. Every success will be magnified. Every mistake will be magnified. Every controversy will be magnified. Sponsors will be watching closely. Fans will be watching closely. Critics will be watching closely. And FIFA will face enormous pressure to demonstrate that its vision for the future is working. If the tournament succeeds, many current concerns may fade away. Sponsors will celebrate. Revenues will grow. Confidence will return. But if significant problems emerge, the questions surrounding FIFA's relationships with major brands could become much louder. That's why this story matters. Not because sponsors are abandoning FIFA tomorrow. Not because the World Cup is suddenly in danger. But because some of the earliest signs of major change often appear long before the public realizes what's happening. Right now, football's biggest organization and some of the world's biggest companies remain connected by one of the most powerful partnerships in sports. The question is whether that partnership will emerge stronger from the challenges ahead, or whether the cracks some people believe they are seeing today could eventually become impossible to ignore. Because when the companies funding football's greatest spectacle start asking difficult questions, everyone should pay attention. And FIFA knows that better than anyone.